Every time has its moment, and the moment for this time is now. Welcome to the Plutonian Show. My name is Roberto Alba, and today I'm going to talk about the nodes of the moon and their importance in the chart. The nodes, the lunar nodes or the karmic nodes are not planets. They're not asteroids. They're not celestial bodies at all. The nodes are going to be the points in the zodiacal axis where the eclipses are going to happen. And it's going to be an axis because it's going to be in between two signs, two opposing signs. You're going to have two nodes. You're going to have the north node, also known as the dragon's head or Rahu. And you're going to have the south node, also known as the dragon's tail and K2. The nature of the north node is an expansion of energy, whereas the nature of the south node is a diminishment of energy. So wherever it is that those nodes are at, there's going to be an emphasis on the place where the north node is going to be at, and again, or an amplification of the themes of the north node, and there's going to be a loss, a diminishment of the matters where the south node lands. Those points are going to be the points where the eclipses happen. Now, the importance of the eclipses, if we want to see them and try to explain them, and not to say that I can explain it satisfactory, but the one thing that we know about eclipses is that it's the thing about eclipses is that it marks a time and a disruption of the energy that we receive from the sun. Whether if it's a solar eclipse or if it's a lunar eclipse, because when there's a lunar eclipse, the light that the moon reflects and gives us from the sun is diminished. It's eclipsed and is disrupted. So it's almost like a reset every time that there's an eclipse. There's a rapture of energy, and that's why those energies are going to be concentrated in that area of the sky, that area of the chart. Now, the interesting part about the nodes, the lunar nodes, we all have them. The lunar nodes move against the zodiacal wheel compared to the planets. For instance, the planets are going to go from Aries to Taurus to Gemini, so on and so forth. Whereas the nodes are going to be, for instance, from Gemini to Taurus to Aries to Pisces and so on and so forth. So they're going to go against. The interesting thing about the nodes is that the nodes are going to place a very amplified, magnifying glass concentration of energy wherever it is that they are pointed at. The other thing that it's important to note is that there's three types of energy within the zodiac, which is the cardinal energy, the fixed energy, and the mutable energy. There's three types of signs in the zodiac, which is the cardinal signs, the fixed signs, and the mutable signs, or double-bodied. And the reason why it's divided like that is because the zodiacal wheel is divided by the seasons of the year, which is spring, summer, fall, and winter. And there's 3 signs per season. There's 3 months per season. There's a cardinal month, which is when the season takes off. There's a fixed month when the season is in bloom and it's gonna be as deep as it's gonna get. And then there's the mutable energy when things start turning and preparing for the next season. And that's how the seasons move. However, the nodes go against that. The nodes are gonna, for the sakes of starting somewhere, the nodes are gonna start. For instance, if they're gonna go in a cardinal, if we're gonna start in a cardinal sign because that's the beginning, the cardinal then is gonna go into a mutable energy, and then it's gonna go to a fixed energy, and then to a cardinal again. Now, as a personal note, and in my experience, whenever I started focusing on when the nodes were brought to my attention, was at the time that the nodes were making the change to the axis of Gemini, which is um, mutable sign. And the thing that I noticed, and all of this is hindsight looking back, is that as I focused the energy on that mutable sign, I started preparing for. I noticed that I started preparing for the next one because the next one was gonna come. Was gonna be my nodal reversal because I'm a Taurus and I was born with the nodes in Taurus and Scorpio, which is the placement that is going on right now. So throughout, on and on, while the nodes of the moon were in mutable signs, it was almost like I was gathering information. I was preparing myself for the next axis, which was going to be a fixed axis. And I was and personally I was expecting for things to happen when the nodes moved. But looking back and into my surprise, nothing really happened. Like nothing. Like personally, like I thought that there was gonna be a major upheaval because it's my nodal reversal. I thought that things were gonna happen, things of vast importance were gonna happen, and nothing did. Apparently, because I realized that the nodes were in fixed energy, which is the energy that I was born in, and that's the importance of your personal knowing where the nodes were whenever you were born, because that energy, whether it's cardinal or mutable or fixed, that energy is going to be the energy that you're used to. That's going to be the energy that it's going to dictate the way that you are going to move. Now, this is something that I did not read this in a book. I just had this epiphany because I was watching another astrologer. And they were talking about the moon, about the nodes, and I realized that the energy that when the nodes are going, there's this energy that is they impregnate and they put emphasis on that energy. If it's fixed or if it's cardinal or if it's mutable, it's like that is the energy that is permeating, regardless of what's happening throughout the time, those 18 months. The energy that is going to be active, it's going to be the one dictated by the nodes. And the reason why they're the karmic nodes is because those are out of our control, and they move against the grain. So when I was all this time that I was preparing for the nodes to change, once they change it to the fixed energy, as I mentioned, it's like I was waiting for a lot of changes to happen and nothing changed. Nothing outside of me changed. Outside of me changed. However, because of that, I started digging within myself, and I started changing things about myself. Because of the fact that I was waiting for change that wasn't going to happen, I started changing things, which I found fascinating. Because it's whenever you have the nodes in fixed energy, it's like a Sunday. If you don't work on Sundays, it's like a Sunday. Like there's not a lot of traffic. There's there's no mail. You don't get a lot of news. Everybody's out. You're by yourself, or with you don't have that pressure. It's just interesting. And again, this is from my personal experience of what I'm experiencing right now. And I had an epiphany that I was born into that energy. Imagine that you're born on a calm sea. Imagine that you get to be born in a stormy sea or a windy sea or a calm sea. And because having that early experience and have that energy imprinted on you, that's the way that you're going to act. Because you're going to take that energy with you. That energy is with you. The notes are going to change, but your nodal energy is going to be within you. The nodal energy is going to be your it's going to be your inner compass. And like if there's an energy that is going to guide you, and that's why a lot of astrologers, rightly so, say that the nodes are what you're pursuing in life. And there's some truth to that. But the biggest truth is because that is the energy that was imprinted within you at the moment of your birth. You're gonna be acting the way that you're gonna be acting according to your nodes, because that was the way that the energy of of the sun and the moon was flowing at the time of your birth, and it's a long period of time. The nodal axis is it's 18 months, and it's a long ass time. So whenever that happens, it's like you are impregnated, you are imprinted with that, and you act accordingly. And I totally recommend you look whenever you look at your chart, whenever you're figuring it out, look at the placement of the north of the moon, and look at the polarity of the type of energy that was being flowing at the time, whether it was fixed or cardinal or mutable. And you will see, and more, I can assure you that you're gonna understand a lot more about the way that you react. And see, because they're the lunar nodes, because it's gonna be like the sun doesn't move, the planets move, and it's in that moment when the moon disrupts the way that the energy of the sun is coming to the earth, and that's why they're the nodes of the moon. It is that out of our control, almost randomness, that that makes that energy flow. It's the moon. It's all about the moon. The sun is not moving. Everything else is moving around the sun, but it's the dance that the moon does with the sun, and it's the moon that disrupts the energy. That's why it's karmic, because it's like it's where it's gonna flow. Like it's a path, and you're gonna be bound to that path, one way or the other. It's gonna be within you to understand what type of how you're going about your path. The lunar notes, they are in reality a compass. They are your personal compass because that's the way that you're going to act subconsciously because it's the moon. Like you're going to act and you're not going to and it's almost like you're not going to understand why you do the things that you do. You're just going to flow like that because that's the way that the moon flows and that's the energy that we receive from the moon. After I've been through these eclipses and fixed energy, I have been digging and digging and doing all sorts of because there was not a lot of things coming my way. I focused my energy into myself and within myself. And as I see the nodes changing, I can already tell that I already know that I'm gonna be doing things. I'm gonna initiate things on cardinal energy because this time that I spend in the calm seas of the fixed energy of the nodes, I was able to understand where the energy comes from and how I'm going to handle the energy. And at the end of the day, that's the reason and the importance of the nodes of the moon because it's your personal energy. It's your inner compass and you're going to harness it. If you understand the energy of the lunar nodes of your birth and how it affects and how it permeates and influences the way that you move in the world, once you understand this and you harness it, you're going to harness an inner energy that it's yours and yours alone, and it's your inner power. At the end of the day, that is what we should strive for. Hopefully, this one was useful. I want to put myself in the shoulder because this is a theme that I have never heard any astrologer talked about, and I don't believe astrology is a very interesting subject uh, because everybody is right. And like whenever I think about astrologers, I'm reminded of a story of a fable of some blind monks trying to figure out what an elephant was by touching it or by interacting with it, but without seeing it. And everybody gave a different description, which was kind of accurate, but nobody saw the whole picture. And that's the thing about astrologers. Like we're all blinded. We are completely blinded to the whole picture because that's the way that it's supposed to be. Like you listen to another astrologer and they might show you something that you haven't seen, or they might trigger for you to ask questions and see things that you didn't see before and come to your own conclusions. So, anyways, um, this is my little rant about the North of the Moon. Remember, we are learning the language of the stars because we are made of them. And it's by learning the language of the stars that the stars get to know themselves. My name is Roberto Alba, and this is a Plutonian Shore. Hasta luego.